Yes. Hi, welcome to today's debate. Today we will be discussing care versus empowerment. The empowerment side supports that the quality of life with individuals is better when they have the ability to make choices for themselves. When we say quality of life, we're talking about basic human rights that allow people to interact with one another in the world on their own terms. Individuals with disabilities are humans and should enjoy and experience the same rights as all other individuals in society. Yet too often they are faced with a set of obstacles that generally emerges, and the question then becomes, how is it that we can help accommodate these individuals so that they may not only have a great quality of life, but also deserve and accept some of the basic human rights as the general population? The care side represents the notion that individuals who cannot necessarily advocate for themselves need a higher level of care to be determined by someone else. Oftentimes, when it comes to medical decisions, medical professionals are the ones who should be in charge of making those decisions. Moreover, the care side believes that individuals with ASD are best served in settings where there are multiple individuals available and they can readily create accommodations as needed. While the care side, of course, does not argue against the individual rights of individuals with ASD, their main concern involves safety, realistic ability, how that pertains to their quality of life when they're integrated in society, and the notion that independence alone is not necessarily enough to promote a healthy and sustainable life. Speakers for the empowerment side today are going to be Bryant.
Hi, I'm Bryant.
Maria.
Hi, I'm Maria.
And myself, Nicole. And then speakers for the care side are Trina.
Hi.
And Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly.
Okay, guys, so the first debate topic we'll be discussing today in empowerment versus care is on self-determination and self-advocacy with regards to healthcare and medical decisions. We're going to be starting with the care side today, so go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Nicole. So as you know, I'm Trina. I'm speaking on the care side for this topic. Determining medical care for individuals who have a developmental disability has been a topic of debate for many years. Should the individual decide his or her own health care? Should it be the responsibility of their primary caregiver, or should it be a doctor's decision? In the United States, we do have a law that answers this question. Legally, it is a doctor's responsibility to determine an individual's level of functioning and possible limitations of the individual's disability in regard to making healthcare decisions. This determination is made based upon the Disability Assessment Schedule. This assessment was originally created in 1988. However, the first edition was only designed to assess psychiatric patients. The second edition, which we currently use, was updated to cover a broad range of individuals and is used as the International Classification of Functioning, Disability, and Health, more commonly known as the acronym HUDAS 2.0. This is used to assess the 6 domains of life. Domain 1 is cognition. Cognition assesses communication and thinking activities. Specific areas assessed include concentrating, remembering, problem solving, learning, and communication. Domain 2 is mobility, which assesses activities such as standing, moving, getting around inside of the home, getting out of the home, and walking a long distance. While domain 3 is self-care, this assesses self-ability towards hygiene, dressing, eating, and staying alone. Domain 4 is getting along. Getting along domain assesses interactions with other people and difficulties that might be encountered in this domain due to a health condition. This can be with regards to intimate, such as spouse, family member, close friends, or this can be towards strangers. Domain 5 is life activities. This assesses difficulty with day-to-day activities. These are typical things that most people do, including domestic responsibilities, leisure, work, and school. The last domain 6 is participation. This assesses social dimensions such as community activities, barriers and hindrance in the world, and problems with other issues such as maintaining dignity. This assessment is used to determine if the individual is capable of giving informed consent. In order for an individual to be able to provide informed consent, he or she must have the abilities to understand relevant information, appreciate the consequences of the information for one situation, reason about the available options, and communicate a choice. While it is human nature to want to give everybody a choice in their medical decisions, it is imperative that we ensure that each individual is fully capable of understanding every aspect associated with the decision. According to the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, BACB, as service providers, we are required to ensure our clients' safety. Preserving client safety may consist of working with other medical professionals. Ethical Code 2.03b states that when appropriate, behavior analysts cooperate with other medical professionals to ensure that their clients are best served. If individuals are not capable of making informed consent, then these important medical care decisions should be left to the discretion of medical professionals.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Trina. And now we're over to Maria on the empowerment side.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Trina. And I really appreciate for sharing your position today with us. I'm Maria Tuquias, and I will be speaking on behalf that supports that quality of life is better when choosing one's own medical care. Self-determination or self-advocacy is an individual's ability to effectively communicate, convey, negotiate, or assert his or her own interests, desires, needs, and rights. These concepts work to ensure that the patient's right to make their own decisions regarding healthcare be communicated and protected. While I agree with Trina's point regarding the need to be evaluated to determine ability, but it should also be noted that resources should be used and exhausted before ever deciding that an individual is incapable of choosing for themselves. For example, they have to assess his ability, materials on the same information presented in various ways, and many more. Too often, assumptions are often made with regards to individuals with autism and their ability to understand medical information. According to the medical clinics of North America, on a research that was conducted on primary care for adults on the autism spectrum, often these assumptions are made without reference to their actual capabilities, which can at least be addressed by obtaining the appropriate preliminary information on a patient. For example, is he able to communicate? Is he able to read and write? His ability to make an appointment, etc. And unfortunately, the individual's lives may be severely impacted in doing so. Measures by the American Disabilities Act, or ADA, requires that barriers to a patient's potential understanding be addressed on an individualized basis. It is the duty of the doctor and those close to the individual who should ensure that they assent or agree to treatments. According to BACP Code 2.05, rights and prerogatives of clients, and that information is referring to the individual be explained in a meaningful way. For example, one such measure is called autism health accommodations, or AHAT, created by Aspire, and is an interactive tool for patients and supporters to create a provider-friendly report of individualized strategies and accommodations to facilitate healthcare. This helps the individual indicate preferences to treatment and desired outcomes. Moreover, it is also important to remember that individuals with ASD are different types of learners. Some individuals need more time to process, some need visual aids and supports, while others may need communication tools like sign language or communication devices. According to a research about staff training in intellectual disability services, a review of the literature and implications for mental health services provided to individuals with intellectual disability, all of these factors that I already pointed out should be considered and implemented before any medical decisions are to be made on the behalf of another individual. And while I do agree with Trina that the cognitive ability should only be determined by a doctor, but what measures are actually in place to ensure the doctors are exhausting all possible resources and not just using a one-size-fits-all assessment that was not even necessarily designed with the type of neurological traits exhibited by those diagnosed with autism. Thank you.
Okay, those were excellent points. Thank you so much, Trina and Maria, for sharing your side's position with regards to self-advocacy and self-determination for healthcare and medical decisions. It's very clear that that's something very important we're going to need to address as the population continues to increase. The next debate topic we have is autism in the workforce, and we're going to be turning that to the empowerment side first. Bryant, please take that away.
Hi, my name is Bryant, and I'll be advocating for the empowerment side on the positive impacts on workplaces that employ individuals with disabilities and the financial benefits and morale that outweigh the risks. In terms of benefits, there are plenty. The National Autistic Society has noted that some individuals with high-functioning autism spectrum disorder may be particularly attentive to details, be meticulous about rules, accuracy, and routines. Along with this, some with high-functioning autism spectrum disorder have been known to be extremely persistent, technologically savvy, and have excellent long-term memory when it comes to specific facts. These qualities, when channeled correctly, can be very useful in the workforce and has already been displayed quite a bit in the fields of engineering, accounting, programming, and library science, just to name a few. Now, of course, this does not go for everyone with ASD, but it has been shown that when you guide those with special interest areas, you can bring about these immensely useful skill sets. According to Bross, when an individualized education plan surrounds a specific area of interest, like cars, for example, it not only promotes vocational skills for the future, but improves overall performance in school. This can be seen in a graph displayed by Bross. As we can see here, the trend line for students who have a special area of interest have better expected performance and actual performance in the intervention phase for overall academic performance. And the generalized education plan here, you can see there's actually a bit of a downward trend towards that. So special area of interests are important when sharing that. Now, as an employer, when you find those with a channeled special area of interest, hiring them no longer becomes a risk. If anything, it becomes an advantage in terms of employee efficiency, as again, these employees are known to be very reliable, persistent, and attentive to details. These skill sets and attributes that have been shown to be within those with high functioning autism should be seen as an advantage, not an inconvenience or liability. This alone should dispel the myth that hiring those with ASD can cause lower quality of work or services when accepting this disenfranchised population. Now, in terms of ethics, things can get a bit complicated. As someone who works directly with the client, you are upheld to the code of ethics that the BACB puts forth. This includes Code 2.02 of responsibility and advocating for his or her best interest. This would include aiding the client in aiming towards obtaining a job in the workforce in order to gain independence as the ultimate goal. This goal of independence aids in having the individual rely less on government resources, the need for constant supervision, and ultimately gives them a sense of empowerment that aids in overall well-being and quality of life. This can, of course, be difficult to understand when employers do not see the benefits of employing those with disabilities. Although employers are not held to the same ethical standards that the BACB puts on those who work directly with the client, it is something to consider when assessing one's own personal code of ethics. As stated earlier, employing those with disabilities has benefits that outweigh risks. This includes financial benefits of a different perspective, perseverance, attention to detail, and a large list of other aspects to consider. Not only will an employer benefit from this exchange, but also a sense of true empowerment can be given to the clients. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bryant. You raised some excellent points. Now we're going to turn it over to the care side with Kelly.
All right. Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Bryant. You certainly raised some great points, and I completely agree with the notion that people with autism should be involved in the competitive workforce. However, you neglect to mention the hurdles that make it difficult for individuals with autism to compete equally in the workforce and why it doesn't happen naturally. So in response to Brian's ethical concern pertaining to the BACB Code 2.02 responsibility, the individual's readiness to enter a workforce typically depends on the type of curriculum they receive while in school. The type of school they attend determines the type of skills and knowledge they accrue. So students with ASD are assessed and either placed into a diploma track or a certificate track for their schooling. On the Indiana Department of Education website, they provide a frequently asked questions resource guide for what it means to receive a certificate of completion. It states many students with disabilities who have had appropriate academic and vocational instruction and leave high school without a diploma are capable and willing to work. However, the existing certificate of completion is not recognized as a meaningful document by the employment community. So for the students that are in a certificate track, this automatically and severely limits the ability to secure a job. As for the kids that receive a diploma, they may not have had a curriculum that taught many vocational skills to the students since they are focused on completing educational requirements to meet the diploma criteria. Most of the students who do receive vocational skills training prior to termination of their education often do not achieve training at a level that they can function as an employee independently. However, most places of business do not allow an aide to be working alongside with a hired employee because of the rules and regulations of the company. Most of the transitioning youth there would need to have a trained staff person or job coach assisting the individual to assure teaching the vocational skills that are needed for that job description and work up the individual to independence. So as you can see, the ability to advocate for themselves may be hindered based on the educational requirements, client readiness, and the company's receptiveness to meet the client's needs for being gradually integrated into the workforce. The other code that we need to reference here is 3.01 Behavior Analytic Assessment. The client should have an assessment performed prior to discussing employment opportunities to analyze which type of vocational skills and behavior that need to be refined or taught. So oftentimes, the best placement for persons with ASD that need assistance will be a transitional vocation job program before they can enter into the competitive workforce. Although these programs are great, these programs are extremely rare to find and also hard to be placed in. Since there are limited opportunities for access to transition programs, it makes it harder for persons with intellectual disabilities to be a suitable employee in finding a job. I actually work with participants at a vocational transition program, and it works really well. They each have a staff assisting them and work on skills such as communicating with coworkers, completing a job task, reducing problem behaviors when asked to complete non-preferred job tasks, and so on. These are the types of programs that we need more of. However, the funding to get programs of this type started is very limited. One of the main issues with achieving the goal of empowerment is that there needs to be a policy change for government funding that helps financially support adults with autism, rather than focusing mainly on providing support to young kids with autism, then having them age out. So according to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, all states must start the transition plan for students by the time they reach age 16. Most transition plans start at age 14 and cover up to the time of the child being 21. So 21 is actually the point at which students age out of their education service and most of their other services that are provided to children with ASD. So as you can see, there are many hurdles to achieving the goal of getting people with autism into the workforce.
All right, thank you so much, Bryant and Kelly. You also both raised some very strong and valid points for consideration with regards to individuals with ASD and how that translates to the workplace. For our next topic on care versus empowerment, we will be discussing the transition individuals face as they enter adulthood with regards to what's next and what's ethical. We're going to be starting today with the empowerment side. So Maria, please take it away.
Thank you, Nicole. This time I'll be advocating for the empowerment side, which supports the positive impact of people with autism living independently. The concept of empowerment is being actively discussed as an alternative to the method of assistance which helps to promote the integrity of individuals as stated in the BABC Ethic Code 1.04. Proponents of the movement for neurodynamics believe that autism, like other brain disorders, should not be perceived as a disease that needs to be cured, but as a difference that needs to be accepted. Some activists in the field of autism are suspicious of the movement for empowerment. Proponents of neurodiversity object to the approach of many activists in the field of autism. They believe that some organizations are more likely to cure and to make autistic people behave normally, rather than improving their quality of life. But what is neurodiversity? According to a research, critical autism studies exploring epistemic dialogues and intersections, challenging dominant understandings of autism, they mention that neurodiversity means recognizing that autism is a congenital neurological difference. These differences are associated with both talent and disability, as Brian mentioned in his debate about the workforce. Therefore, the concept of empowerment should be applied to people with autism. Nowadays, there are many autistic people who live independent lives, live in their own apartment, and have a regular job. Let's watch a video in which we see how an effective treatment can help an individual with autism. Bear with me.
Why is it a big deal that Josh Kluger gets up every morning and makes his own breakfast and straightens up the place a little, and then remembers belatedly to go back and grab his lunch Before he heads off to work, which takes a quarter-mile hike, texting all the way, before he reaches the bus stop, and then a 45-minute trip with one transfer along the way. And when I come on board and Josh shows me how to swipe my ticket, and it comes back, yes. Why is that a big deal? Because until last year, Josh had experienced none of this. No apartment, no paying job, no bus pass even. Actually, he'd never ridden a bus on his own before last year. How old are you now?
I'm 36.
You only really began being able to ride the bus when you were already over 30.
I think so, yes.
What did you have to learn?
I learned how streets.
And though Josh is not the chattiest person around, except perhaps when he's texting, you can tell from his stride and from his air of confidence about where he's heading that Josh really likes the as right now.
Is this ours? Yes.
Okay. And that he's going to keep going with it, autism or not.
As we see, I'm sorry. Okay. So as we see on the video, autistic people, of course, let me stop my screen. So as we saw on the video, autistic people, of course, can live independently. Of course, they can have regular jobs. Of course, they can make choices like others, like me and you. According to the BACB code 2.09, treatment or intervention efficacy, behavior analysts should only rely on scientific knowledge. Therefore, behavior analysts who work with people with autism should help them develop those skills which they help them to be independent. According to a research about Centers for Independent Living and Transition Age Youth, behavior analysts should teach them how to problem solve, promote goal setting, how to make decisions and self-advocacy skills, and how to protect themselves. And they also have to focus on efforts to promote opportunities for students to use these skills. Teaching them those skills can have a powerful impact, meaningful role in the lives of people with autism, and true empowerment can be given as a result of learned skills that enable them to independently perform daily living activities. Autism affects individuals' ability to communicate, adapt to new situations, expand beyond restricted interest, and manage daily life. But that doesn't mean they're not capable or they cannot learn how to do so. Autistic people have rights and choices as every human being. Therefore, in the United States, there are some transition programs which support autonomy and independence for autistic adults. The Office for People with Developmental Disabilities in every state has housing services and supports based on each person's needs, goals, and preferences. For those that have a majority of basic living skills, but not every skill needed to live on their own, and they're still capable of living independently through supported living programs, the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities provides programs that still allows them to live on their own home while having a staff member come for a few hours each day to assist with minor tasks. For the ones that need daily monitoring, but they are still capable of asserting some independence, there is an option called individualized residential alternatives. This option is also called a group home living because there are typically 3 to 4 adults living in a house with staff members around them and around the clock who tend to need such as cooking, meals, monitoring and administering medications, and managing schedules. The main goal of the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities is to help people with disabilities to live as possible independently in their community. So as we saw on the video, Josh is happy and content with his own life. He also is proving the last 2 years that he can live on his own. So why indeed is it a big deal autistic people to live independently or even to learn how to live independently? So why not give them the power of autonomy and independence, since this will provide them with happiness and confidence, in which leads to a better quality of life too. Thank you.
Excellent points, Maria. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to be moving on to Kelly, who is going to be arguing for the care side.
Thank you, Nicole. And thank you, Maria, for speaking about people with autism and their empowerment concerns. It is important we understand their rights and integrate them as much as possible to try figuring out exactly which type of life they would like to lead as independently as possible. So I work with transitional youth now, but previously worked in a group home setting and have seen these issues with independence firsthand. So I worked in a group home as a live-out staff for 3 months and volunteered as a as-needed live-in staff overnight for 2 years. In the group home I was affiliated with, it was mandatory to have 2 staff in the house overnight with 3 residents in case of emergencies and general concerns for the residents. So the shift overnight was from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., 7 days a week. Even though the position was on-call position, it was still a high-demand job. The other staffing concern was maintaining live-out staff for the daytime hours. This led to the management team primarily focusing on finding live-out supports where it was 1 staff person per 3 residents. So both live-out and live-in are high-demand jobs that also require everyone to be certified med trained. The requirement that must be met in order to hire a staff person for a group home is directly correlated to the BACB code 2.01 accepting clients, which reads, behavior analysts accept as clients only the individuals or entities whose requested services are commensurate with the behavior analyst education, training, experience, available resources, and organizational practices or policies. So the group home must assure that the staff members are competent, properly certified, and trained to work with the residents of which they are housing before accepting them as an employee. So as a result, the turnover rate was extremely high because staff members felt the job demands were outside their abilities. In an article published by Robert King, he researched the impact of caseload on the personal efficacy of mental health case managers and found that caseload size had significant impact on the self-perceived role performance of mental health case managers. This supports the notion that staff burnout rates are higher in terms of working with multiple individuals in a single setting. A lot of group homes are unable to accept more clients because they cannot provide the staff ratio to support the residents, and independent living situations, either due to limited staff options or funding concerns, which is also related to the BACB code 2.01 accepting clients. So this is a high demand job for people in the field. For group homes, there's a concern that there might not be enough staff for the number of residents to properly run the facility while providing assistance to each resident. Another concern raised is if the residents have multiple individual needs, it becomes a lot for a single staff person to effectively aid and assist the individuals with their needs diligently. I think many people would be asking why not hire more staff so that the individuals can have one-on-ones or proper treatment, but there simply is not enough funding to provide such support after the children become adults. So I have a graph to show the funding cost. So here is the state operated living alternative caseload activity and cost. So as you can see, in the 2018 fiscal year, it cost over $200,000 per client just to take care of their housing needs and their, yeah. So you can see it's very expensive to maintain. Let me. Back. Okay. So as it stands today, programs are trying to promote independent living apartments as opposed to group homes. A large part of this issue pertains to the funding of group homes versus independent living situations. In a group home setting, the home is liable to provide funding on multiple other factors such as scheduling outings, paying and providing staff, scheduling doctor visits, etc. In independent living situations, funding and planning is primarily the responsibility of the individual who is receiving care. For example, in the Maryland and Washington, D.C. area, individuals with disabilities receive funding through Developmental Disabilities Administration, or DDA, which is a state-supported agency that provides financial support to persons with disabilities. On the DDA website, it states, there is a high demand for funding for services from DDA. The DDA is currently unable to meet all requests, so it established a waiting list. The waiting list is prioritized so that people with the greatest need are helped first. The DDA follows regulations to determine eligibility, priority category, and placement on the waiting list. People who apply to the DDA but do not need services within the next 3 years are placed in the Future Needs Registry. So this adds an additional hurdle for people with autism since the state funding covers all disabilities, not just autism. Therefore, for higher functioning adults with autism, figuring out an independent living situation can actually be harder for them to find than for those who are severely disabled or considered to be elderly.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much for your points as well, Kelly. Okay, so that wraps up topic number 3 with Maria and Kelly. Thank you guys so much. So in conclusion, overall, with topic number 1, with regards to medical care, the empowerment side tends to believe that medical decisions should stay with the individuals and that those individual rights should be protected at all costs, and that absolutely all resources are exhausted before one makes the decision that they are incapable of deciding for themselves. The care side advocates that individuals are best served when they have individuals with medical professional degrees making those types of medical decisions and healthcare options for them. For the argument with regards to individuals with ASD in the workplace, the empowerment side focused on the positive effects with regards to not only the financial benefits of the workplace, but a personal sense of empowerment and self-development that's gained by the individual through their contribution as an active member in that workplace and in society. The care side of the workplace debate focuses more on the safety concerns and overall morale. Also, the individual pre-vocational skills that are necessary for individuals to be successful in these jobs are also something that need to be considered as well. And then finally, our argument regarding the transition into adulthood and appropriate living accommodations. The empowerment side argues that individuals discern the same rights and privileges as anyone, and that their autonomy should be protected to the best of our ability. Whereas the care side tends to feel that these individuals are best served when they live with a group of people that are able to accommodate needs as necessary or facilitate any unexpected circumstances that may occur. Now, no matter your side of the position, we all want to develop a network where we honor the integrity of all of our consumers, as stated in BACB Code 1.04, and that we also offer all necessary resources to help develop and aid in their understanding, as stated in Code 4.02, so that they can make informed decisions and provide assent to the best of their ability. As a society in general, it's also up to us to promote an ethical culture, and analysts specifically for Code 7.01. It's important to remember that individuals come from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, have different disabilities, and it's important to create a very ethical and open culture. So at this time, now that we've finished the debate, we would like to open up the debate for audience questions. Looks like I have 2 here already. Okay, the first one is for the medical debate. Who would cover the cost of assessments with regards to assuming their ability to make their own medical decisions? That's a good question. That's a lot of additional work. And so often the question is, okay, well, who gets charged for that? Where do they go for billing, et cetera? Who's going to cover the costs of these things? Most of our individuals with developmental disabilities are eligible for supplemental state income, as well as different Medicaid and Medicare packages as well. Insurance policies covered through those different state programs tend to cover almost all of the costs and co-pays or deductibles. And as a part of the assessment and the initial evaluation, it's the doctor's duty to ensure that they are gathering as much preliminary information as possible. The second question raised was with regards to IEPs and an individual's ability to develop pre-vocational skills as they enter into the workplace. Who chooses what to put in the IEP? That's a really great question. Another ethical standard and code is that we are including and involving all individuals on a treatment plan in the IEP meeting, which means that their caregivers, teachers, hopefully the individual themselves, if they can state what it is that they would like to do and how they'd like to develop, as well as anybody else that works closely with that individual. They work together to design and create a program that's going to be the best functional assessment for that kiddo and whatever pre-vocational skills that they need to develop. The biggest thing, though, is that it's a group decision and that that client should also have assent and be a part of all decisions made. Those are the last of the questions that we have for now. So we'll just open it up for additional questions. Thank you so much, everybody. Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's a wrap. Kelly?
I'm going to share some references real quick. So in case someone wants to
oh, yes.
look up
Excellent.
some information on their own. So here's the first page. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.